Hello, everyone. I don't know if it looks like we have like a ton more people because we're all in this little room. But a while ago, we were in 3 rooms. So thank you all for being here and thank you all for being patient and reading all of our signage. We did not know we were going to be here until late this afternoon when we came to set up. Yeah. So I think they just didn't remember that the Holy Name has always been a polling place. And so nobody remembered but here we are. So thank you all for being here. I hope you enjoyed dinner. We usually give a round of applause to Angel and Kayla, but they're back in the kitchen. They won't hear us, but I'll tell them. So, we all, each week you guys see the little stress or manage stress, the 6 pillars or 5 of AARP, the pillars. And managing your stress was Susan and I had to work on managing our stress this afternoon. Because then each time we would have something like, well, do we have a connection? And then I heard Esther say, is the password the same? And Susan's like, I don't know. So was it?
It was.
It was. Okay. So see, everything worked out. But isn't this what you do in caregiving? You don't always, it doesn't always go as planned, right? Anyway, our speaker today drove all the way from Cheyenne, and I had to tell him that he wasn't going to be in the normal place. And so that we hope, he's like, well, do we have like a screen? And I'm thinking, I think there was a crucifix there. So I called Susan back. I'm like, do we? And she said, we have a TV and it's like I don't know, little tiny TV. So anyway, it's all going to work, right? But I'd like to introduce our speaker. And Sam Shumway is the state director for Wyoming with AARP. And he says I'm his boss because I'm the state president. And I say he's my boss because he's the state director. So today we're both wearing AARP shirts, so you can pick us out. But Sam is a great presenter on brain health. He lives all of this every day. So he's going to share with us, and he also has a background in law. He is also an attorney, and he used to live here in Sheridan. So you all might know Sam Shumway, but if you don't, here is Sam.
Thank you, Stella. And if you know Stella, you know who's the boss, right? Stella's the boss. So I'm Sam Shumway. I basically grew up in Wyoming. I always like a little bit of an intro of the people that are talking to me. I grew up in Laramie, did law school at the University of Wyoming. Stella said I practiced law here in Sheridan for a little bit with Davis and Cannon in the early days of my legal career. Did a few other things, and I've been with AARP as the state director now for 8 years. I'm in my 8th year, and I love it. I love our volunteers. I love the work that we do. It's a really fun job. And I love Sheridan. Every chance I get, Stella, did I ask you if I could come present? I probably did. I was like, Stella, can I come present on you? Because if I get up to Sheridan, I always take advantage of that. So we're going to talk about brain health. We have to do this disclaimer because I am a lawyer, but I'm not a doctor. So this session is, and I'm going to read it because it's really small. This session is intended to be informational and educational and does not constitute medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. You should always seek advice of a physician or other qualified healthcare provider for diagnosis and treatment of your specific medical needs. Excuse me, for questions regarding personal health or medical conditions, and before beginning or changing any treatment, activity, program, or dietary plan. AARP is not responsible for the consequences of any decisions or actions taken in reliance upon or as a result of the information provided during this event. So now our lawyers are happy. None of you are going to sue us, I don't think. I want to start, this isn't part of the normal brain health presentation, but Stella, you know who this is. Stella, who's this? Yes. Yeah. So I can talk louder into the mic. I should never give Stella the floor because she won't give it back. So my mom, so 3 years ago, right Ooh, it was like right at the end of the pandemic, right at the end of COVID, we had started doing a lot of virtual stuff, a lot of classes online, fitness classes, art classes, a bunch of stuff. And we did a survey to see kind of what do Wyoming folks want to, what kind of online offerings do they want? One of the things that came up was line dancing, which sounds kind of interesting. And we were like, well, how would we do that? First, we need a teacher. So we asked a few people and they were like, well, I don't want to do it, or you need to pay me a bunch of money. And we were like, well, okay. I said, let me ask my mom. My mom turned 74 this year. And she had always kind of taught dance to like kids, and she's always done that kind of stuff. But I asked her and she's like, Sam, I don't do line dancing. I don't want to do it. So that was my first time asking her. Second time when I was begging a little bit more. Third time I used a little bit of flattery, and I promised her, she lives in Laramie too. And we do this in Cheyenne. So finally she agreed to drive over once a week, every Wednesday at 10 o'clock. She comes over and teaches a line dancing class. She's fantastic. We have 250 people all over the country showing up for her line dancing classes every week. And it's really beautiful because, you know, we can see them on Zoom. We have a big TV. It's kind of a technical setup, but they're in their living rooms doing like line dancing in their living rooms by themselves. But they love it. They're smiling. They're happy. They're connecting. She'll often turn them on at the end of let them chat with her and talk to her about the class and about what they like and don't like. And my mom and I went to lunch a couple of weeks ago, and she said, I'm really glad I said yes to this. She said, I've probably added 5 years to my life by doing this. And you never know, right? But the other thing is she said she's lost like 25 pounds, which is a great benefit as well. And she's also now teaching line dance at the senior center in Laramie. And so she wasn't doing any of that 3 years ago, but I sort of begged her to do it, and she's amazing. She's a superstar. So the reason I'm bringing up Susan as part of brain health is because, and we're going to talk about it. You've probably seen the little table tents with the 6 pillars of brain health. We'll talk about that. But whenever she does her class, whenever she starts her class, she talks about, you know, here are the 4 reasons we do line dancing. 1, it's fun. 2, it's free. 3, it's good for your brain because you're sequencing, you're having to remember these steps, you're having to connect with others. She talks about how it's social, it's a way to connect. She talks about how it's activity. She is literally she's like dripping sweat. She teaches for an hour, and it is, I mean, for her, she goes and she's calling these steps, and but for everybody, there's another gal that was in her class that also said she'd lost a whole bunch of weight. She's there every single Wednesday. I think she does some of their other stuff. We also do like yoga and qigong, and we do other things, but it's really good. So here's the good news about brain health. For a long time, we kind of thought that our brains were our brains. However many neurons and brain cells that we have when we're born, they just kind of stay the same. It's static. And as they die, they die. But the science research has shown that we can actually generate new brain cells, and we can do things that will help mitigate age-related cognitive decline and optimize our chance of maintaining cognitive health. So what I want to do, here's what I want you to do as we're talking about this. And we're going to go about a half an hour because we have an amazing testimonial. Where is she? Okay, yeah. So somebody cue me if I start going long, because I don't want to go long. But this is the other thing I have to say is this is going to be really interactive. I don't know how the other ones have been, but we're going to ask questions and you're going to talk. And so it's maybe a little bit more interactive than some of the other ones have been. But back to where I was, I want you to think about 3 things as we're going through this, 3 things that you're going to do, 3, whether they're small changes or big changes, to improve your brain health, okay? And we'll get to a slide towards the end that we'll talk more about that. But so here are the 6 pillars, and we're going to go through them. And like I said, you saw them on the table tents. Be social, engage your brain, manage your stress, ongoing exercise, restorative sleep, and eat right. And here's a little, although it doesn't seem to work there's a little acronym, BEMORE, be more, right? So although it doesn't seem, because whenever BE is like the first letter, I'm like, be what? Be social. I never remember that. But anyway, there's an acronym, be more, be social is the first one. So let's start with be social. Actually, we're going to do this first. And the importance of brain health. Brain health is more important than ever. We are living longer, and the longer, as we live longer, we want quality of life, right? We want to be healthy. We want to be cognitively, physically healthy. And so as we live longer, our brain health matters even more. The other thing is we're working longer. We're, people are retiring later. They're either choosing to retire later or they may need to because of some financial stresses in their lives. The other piece, excuse me, is the cost of healthcare, as I'm sure all of you know, is skyrocketing. And so if you can stay healthy, you can stave off some of those high costs of healthcare, of long-term care, some of those things, if you can stay healthy. And then I mentioned sort of some of the current brain research that they're doing is showing us that there are behaviors, there are activities, there are things that we can do to help keep us more cognitively healthy. And so that's what we're going to talk about. The other thing I want to mention before we jump into the first pillar, when we survey our members, and we have 80-ish thousand members in Wyoming, we have 38 million members, AARP members across the country. One of the highest things that they're concerned about, they're concerned about the cost of, living. They're concerned about Social Security. They're concerned about the economy, but brain health, their cognitive functioning, staying healthy throughout their lives always scores really high. And so we know this is a concern for our members. So let's jump into Be Social, the first pillar. This is obvious, but this is where we're gonna start interacting. I want to say this. So obviously stay engaged. You guys are being social right now, right? And maybe I'm preaching to the choir here, but to the extent that you, whether it's through a church community, through a volunteer community like our volunteer AARP volunteer team, whether it's volunteering in schools, whether it's helping out, find ways to stay social. Social isolation has been proven to be toxic. If you are just in your home all day by yourself, they say, and they've studied this, they say the negative health impacts of social isolation are the same as smoking, I think, like a pack and a half of cigarettes every day. That's how unhealthy social isolation is. So look for ways to stay socially engaged. So now here's the question. How do you do that? Obviously, we could say this is one great way to do it, but what are some other ways? And I don't want to, we're going to do this with all of the pillars of brain health. So we're not going to linger too long on this, but what are some ways that somebody can share that they stay socially engaged? Yes. Yes.
That's at the hub as well.
Yeah. So the hub is the senior center here, is play ping pong, pinochle, any other and they have lunch. Yeah. That's a great place. Senior centers, listen, we do a lot of work in our legislature to help support and protect funding for local senior centers. They are a great social hub in all the communities. Sheridan has an amazing senior center. What are some other ways? Okay. Is this in person? The teachers there? Yeah. So we also do an online watercolor class. We have an instructor from Laramie that does, she's a professional artist. But yeah, so look for classes, whether they're online, at the library, in person. That's another great way to stay social. Other things, we'll do two more and then we're gonna guess. Yeah. Volunteering. If you don't, I will say this. Look for opportunities. Like I said, whether it's in your church, whether it's with a school, whether it's with just in your neighborhood. Look for ways, gratitude is such an important characteristic of like happiness. And if you're volunteering and helping other people, it's weird. They're grateful, but your individual personal gratitude increases. So volunteering is another great way. Like I said, I don't want to linger too long on this, but here's a few other ideas. I'll read them because it's pretty small for the folks in the back. Join a club, participate in sports, ping pong, pinochle, attend community events, consider adopting a pet or pet sitting, volunteer with a local nonprofit, organize regular virtual game night or book club, attend virtual community events. Good. So we hit on some of those. But again, as you're thinking, I want you to do three things. Like what's something you can do starting today, tomorrow, this week, to help your brain health? And being social is a big piece of that. Yes. Things are close.
Okay. Most of you don't know that we have a walking group at the Y
You don't have to be a member of the Y or the, or AARP. Just come every Tuesday and Thursdays. We're there from 8 to 8:45. And if you can't get there at 8, you can come at 8:15, 8:30, or whatever, and you can walk as long as you want to, and gym too. But like I said, you don't have to be a member of the Y, and you meet new friends, and it's really fun. Yes, it's a social time, and we've met some really nice people in doing this. So that's my take.
Awesome.
And that hits both being social and
Yes.
being healthy, physical activity. So here's just some resources I'll just mention real quick. Create the Good, which is AARP, is a partner with them. Look for volunteering opportunities. We talked about that. I want to mention our virtual events because AARP Wyoming, my office really leads the country in virtual offerings. Jen, who some of you may know, she's an outstanding in finding local Wyoming talent that then we export out to the rest of the country. So there's virtual stuff that you can do if you maybe can't get out or if you just don't have time. And then finally, we have this really great thing called Friendly Voice. And I talked about isolation. If you have someone that is socially isolated and can't get out of the house, we have this thing called the Friendly Voice, which is an 800 number that they can call, and they can just have somebody call them and talk to them, check up on them. We have their volunteers who call and just talk to them. Sometimes that outside connection is really important. And so though I just wanted to mention those resources. Thank you for talking about the walking club too. There's all kinds of stuff, but sometimes we just have to say, okay, I'm going to go out and find something to do. And so, okay, next, engage your brain, pillar 2. This one's really important. I will say this, they talk about like brain teaser puzzles and things like that. They haven't made like a definitive scientific connection between doing like brain puzzles and, delaying Alzheimer's or dementia, things like that. But it does help you keep those synapses firing, those brain synapses firing. But challenge your brain, pursue new interests, stay curious, get a hobby, and challenge your thinking. This is just not being stuck. So again, this is going to be our format. What are some ways that you challenge your brains? Yes. Genealogy. So you look back in your family history and what are some other ways?
Music.
Music. Who said music? Tell me about that a little bit. They actually have proven that music does really promote strong brain health and cognitive function. And it's because there's math, because it fires both sides of the brain, the left and the right side, the creative side and the sort of quantitative math data side, because it incorporates all this. I love music, and I think that's a great way too. What else? New language. The thing is, we're going to jump to a slide. I want to see if we can, how many, because it's going to have the same thing. It's going to have a list of like all the things we can do. So we got music, language, we got genealogy. Other thoughts before we move forward with this? Other ways to learn new things? Travel's a good one. Travel can be complicated. We have to, Stella and I are going to Portland next week, and she's a good travel partner. We Stella and I one time, where were we in? DC. No, it was in LA when we went to that training. Oh, we were waiting for like a Uber Lyft, and we were standing there. Usually they come and like pick you up at the terminal, curbside or whatever. That's not how it is in LA. In case you're traveling to LA, a little pro tip here. The Uber Lyft thing is like what, like a mile and a half away, and they told, well, there's a bus that comes pick you up, or you can just walk. And so on. I'm like, let's just walk. Like 45 minutes later, it was fun. So we were getting physical activity, challenging our brains, being social. You were talking to me the whole time. I was grumbling about how, yeah, Stella's 2 steps from my other one. Okay, so engage your brain, challenge yourself. Take a class or teach a class. If you have some skills, look for opportunities to share those. Learn a language, dance, musical instrument. We talked about that. Try complex arts or crafts. Play challenging card game, board games, pinochle. We talked about that. So again, think of a way that you can challenge and engage your brain. if you're just, sitting watching Matlock every day for nothing against Matlock, Murder She Wrote, what do we watch these days? I don't know. Price is Right. You watch, although Price, the wheel. Okay, let's keep going. Stress. Stress is toxic. Stress can be really toxic. And some ways that you can manage stress: exercise regularly, smile and laugh, distract yourself with music and reading, seek out green spaces. This is an interesting one that they're studying a lot. There's this saying among like younger people. Have you heard this? Touch grass. It just means get out, be outside, get some sun, get some vitamin D that you get with sun. So, question: what are we doing to manage stress? Give me some of your thoughts. Yes.
Right.
This is a little bit of a catch-22 in some ways, because I know that Stella and Susan were really stressed today about getting this put together, right? Is that fair? Yeah. And so sometimes when you are more engaged, whether it's volunteering or learning new things, or in my mom's case, she gets really stressed every time she teaches a class because she's like, I don't want to mess it up. But so the more you're doing, that can create some stress in your life, right? But I will say this: I think there's acute sort of like situational stress, which is what we had today, right? Which is normal, right? Everybody has that kind of stress in their lives, and you can tie it to something that's going on, whether it's teaching a class. And then there's sort of the chronic that leads to depression or anxiety or long term. If you're struggling with those things, I would encourage you to go see someone about that, right? I don't want to say you can just go earthing and all your stress is going to go away. But a little bit of stress because you're doing hard things is actually healthy. Okay. Yeah, your heart may go up a little bit. Yeah, you may feel a little bit of anxiety, but I don't think Susan and Stella are you stressed out right now? No, life's good, right? And you feel really happy because you provide all this to other people. Okay. So what are some other ways that we manage stress? Meditation. Yes. Yes. And the next slide talks a little bit about some of those things. Other ways? Prayer. Beautiful. Prayer. And then somebody said something over time with friends. Yes. Staying connected. Singing. Yeah. Just doing things that make you happy. That what's the hormone that's released when you're happy? Endorphins. Yeah. That helps you manage that stress. So let's look at this: ways to manage stress. Confide in friends. We hit that one. Be silent and still. That's kind of meditation, like deep breathing. Sometimes there are techniques that we can use, even in those acute moments. I'll tell you, my kids were talking to me because I have a great job. I love this job. I don't get super stressed out talking to groups like this. But when I have to go testify before the Wyoming legislature about things, or when I have, meetings with where there's people who don't like me. I think you all probably like me. That can be really stressful. My kids said, well, how do you manage that stress? And you can do some positive sort of cognitive exercises where you do some positive self-talk, like, I can do this, or you just think, okay, I'll go testify. It'll be over in 15 minutes and then I'll go on with my life and I'm not going to die. So I'll be fine. Stretch breaks, limit screen time. That's a big one. Doom scrolling. Have you heard the term doom scrolling? Yeah, all the kids. So social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok is the worst. Those algorithms will pull you in, and you'll just be sitting literally staring at your phone, scrolling you'll get stuck doing it for hours if you're not careful. Because the people that build those algorithms, they're data scientists, they're social scientists, they know how to get you addicted to those things. And you end up doing that, and you just feel like crap can I say crap? And you feel bad. And that can contribute to stress and to anxiety and to depression, all those things. So limit your screen time. And then take deep breaths. That goes back to that one. Good. We're getting there. Pillar 4, ongoing exercise. So here's just some tips, and then we're going to talk about it. Get at least 150 minutes of exercise each week. That comes down to about a half an hour, 20 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day. Yeah, somebody do the math. That increases circulation, reduces anxiety, improves sleep, reduces the risk of diabetes, heart disease, depression, and stroke. Um, Again, this is just a little disclaimer before you change. You know, when I'm talking about find 3 things you're going to change, before you decide, well, I'm going to go do like, some heavy aerobic exercise. What is it? Hit, yeah, where it's super. Your heart rate. Talk to your doctor if you feel like if you're going to launch into some new type of exercise. So, what do you guys do for exercise? Walking is great. Machines at the Y. Biking. Did you say bike? Yeah. Inside or outside or both? Bike. Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, you can't bike outside the whole year in Sheridan, right? What else? What else? What other exercises do we do? Water. Like, does the Y here? They have a pool, right? Yeah, it's nice. Nice. Should we go check it out? Patricia's trying. The Vortex pool. Nice plug for the Vortex pool. What else? Gardening. That's great exercise. Yeah. Working around the house where you're having to bend and sort of do those things. I played city leagues, basketball and softball and volleyball and all those things, but I'm pretty much too old to do those anymore. My body won't let me. So I got a rowing machine. Y'all know what a rowing machine is? And it's low impact. I'm not, I turned 50 that last month actually. I know it's funny in some months when you say you turn 50, like kids are like, well, you're old. And you guys are like, well, you're young. So it's like 50 is just a funny number. But I can't do some of the stuff that I used to be able to do. I've never been a big like runner or anything like that. But find something that, you can get your heart rate up and that is compatible with your lifestyle and what you want to do. Okay. Any Yeah, something you'll like and stay with it. Yeah. So walking, dancing, running, biking, strength training, Tai Chi, yoga. I really liked whoever said work around the house or in the garden. That's really good exercise. Yeah. Being outside, you're also earthing. Is that the term? You're earthing. And it's de-stressing. Yeah, it's great. Okay. We're getting there, almost there. Sleep. Oh, another 5. We just jumped right into. Well, let's do this first. I think we skipped one. 78 hours in a 24-hour period. I was talking to Clarence, your sweet husband, Clarence. I was like, how much sleep? I said, what time do you go to bed? No, I said, what time do you get up? He said, 3:30 in the morning. So what time do you go to bed? He said, like 11 o'clock. I'm like, Clarence, that's like barely 4 hours of sleep. Yeah, he says he takes naps. I'm not sure that's the best. That's not a best practice. Yeah. Yeah, one of the privileges of getting old is you can just fall asleep wherever you want. Yeah. We used to make fun of my dad about that, but now I find myself sitting down in a chair. Just my kids make fun of me now. So, but sleep is important. Sleep's an important part of your overall health. So one of the things that talked about is a good sleep schedule. And so if Clarence goes to bed every night at 11 and gets every morning at 3:30, then that's healthy. But I worry about your sweet husband, Clarence. And it also talks about like habits before sleep. They say try not to drink any caffeine after like noon. Don't smoke like nicotine, any of that after, I don't know, a certain amount of sleep. Blue light. This is the light from your phone or TVs in your room where you're laying in bed. The doom scrolling for me often happens when I'm laying in bed and I just start looking at, social media, and the next thing you know, it's 2 in the morning and I'm watching a bunch of crazy industrial accident videos or something. So judgy. I'm sorry I confessed. Um, ask your friends about doom scrolling. But so sleep is an important part of keeping your brain healthy. And there are good sleep habits. And just keeping your internal clock set. I think we may have these got a little bit out of order. Any sleep tips that you guys are like, this works really well? Any of you? No? Okay. Well, this is the second slide. That's what I talk about. Adjust caffeine intake. Pets that disturb your sleep. Do you ever have pets come in and jump on you during your sleep? Restrict fluids and food 3 hours before going to bed. Keep smartphones, TVs, electronics out of the bedroom. So yeah, those are all good tips. Finally, eat right. Consider how diet affects brain health. And they've studied this. Eat less meat, salt, and sweets. Instead, choose more fish, nuts, grains, beans, leafy vegetables, healthy foods like olive oil. Um, a friend of mine worked for the Alzheimer's Association, and she would talk about how diet can affect onset of dementia and Alzheimer's. And they talk about the Mediterranean diet, which is a lot of you know these kinds of healthy foods, olives, and the kind of food they eat in the Mediterranean. How any diet tips from folks? I know we're pushing. Yeah, we gotta move. Okay. Diet affects your cognitive functioning. Foods that may support brain health, yes, kale, spinach, whole berries, vinegar, lemon. This is interesting. They said instead of like salt and seasoning, use vinegar, lemon, herbs, and spices to sort of season your food. Salmon and sardines, walnuts and almonds. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. And there's at the end, we're going to jump to, and I'm going to do it pretty quick here. We're going to jump to, there's some really great resources on the AARP website, a whole site dedicated to brain health. So and that's going to have better information than I'm giving you right now. Risks and threats to brain health. That guy kind of got cut off. But these are some of the things that cause higher risks or threats to your brain health: smoking, depression, certain medications, diabetes, hearing loss, and vision loss, and then heart disease. Um, yeah, in the interest of time, I'm not going to talk a lot about these, but I think these kinds of things. My dad, who's he's a little bit older than my mom. I'll just tell you this really quickly. He's been on the city council. They live in Laramie. He's been on the city council forever. He's losing his sight, and he's got macular degeneration, and he's trying to figure out how to navigate this new life as somebody that is vision impaired. And I can see how that would really affect like your social interaction, your activity. My mom and I talk about how do we keep him active? How do we keep him engaged and doing difficult things? So the vision and hearing, also get your hearing checked. If you can't hear, and so often we're like, well, I don't want to go get a hearing aid. There's like, there's stigma or whatever. But if you can't hear, it's really hard to be in social situations where you can't hear what people are saying. And so I can't understand what's going on. Establish a routine, pay attention, these are tips, avoid multitasking, take breaks, use a calendar, reminder, and alarms. These are things that you can do as we age. Listen, there is natural sort of cognitive decline as we age. It's an inevitable part of aging, but there are things that we can do to sort of deal to accommodate. Like if we stay more organized, if we're forgetting where things are, we can stay more organized. Last slide, and then what can you do today? This is me asking you your three things. So if you have your three things, remember them, and I would just encourage you to do them. And then this is where I said there are some resources. There's AARP.org brain health. If you just search AARP brain health, it'll send you to this site that's got tons and tons of great information, resources, all of this information that we talked about here, more in-depth, review of these topics. Staying-sharp.aarp.org, and then the Global Council on Brain Health. There's a lot of research there, medical sort of specific research about brain health. And with that, just reminder, those are the 6 pillars, and that is it. Any questions before we turn it over to Renee? Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you, Sam. So you can close that. I failed to mention, we always thank our dinner sponsor, and tonight AARP Sheridan was our dinner sponsor. So sometimes I'll get calls and people ask me, how do we fund this? Because we do it because we want to share, we want caregivers to come. We don't want them for that to be a reason that they didn't come because of their costs and the books. We try to have a lot of books and stuff. We're a little limited tonight because of our space, but Susan does an amazing job, as you all know. If there's a book that you've seen that you haven't been able to get, let us know. Maybe let us know next time when we move around and have a little bit more out there. So our next presenter, I'm very excited to hear this speaker. Renee Metter wrote a book. Her dad, a lot of us knew Sam Rodolini. Many of us knew Sam. And Sam was, am I correct that he was approaching like 106? Renee, come on up here and we'll just introduce you. But you know what? Do you realize that sometimes when you're a caregiver to a parent that's 106, no, I'm not saying that you are 80, but I'm saying that when somebody is caring, I knew this because working at the senior center, I'd have caregivers in their 80s because their parents were, 100, 101, and 20 years old. You can be a parent, right? So I don't know how you look like you're 60, so I don't know how you did it, but anyway, care. I nailed it. Okay. No. Well, you must be doing some of this brain health because you don't look that. So Renee's going to talk about the book she wrote, maybe why she wrote the book, what maybe it was about brain health. So would you like to be mic'd with this, or do you want to hold this? You can do either one.
Okay. I moved back to Sheridan in 94. My mother died in 98. And Dad and I started on a journey of getting old together. He was still very young and vibrant. He would have been, well, he worked until he was 81, and that was in 1997. And so he always thought he would die first, of course, because he was older. And he ended up taking care of Mom. So I saw that firsthand. He was able to really move into a new role. And work with her and take care of her, make sure she was safe and didn't burn the house down. And that was a real lesson for me, because growing up, they were very traditional about what jobs were whose, even though Mom worked full-time in Dad's office. She still did the household things. He cleaned the office. So they had a very, very good working relationship. And he and I were always close. And I was able to move home in 1994. And I started working with him in the office. And when he retired, I went back into education. And then I was here as he aged, and our relationship began to shift. My siblings were not here, and I was pretty much on my own most of the time. So I did turn to writing things down. Sometimes I'm keeping track of something that is happening with him. Sometimes I'm keeping track of something that was happening with me. Sometimes I'm working through hurt feelings and misunderstandings and those things that happened when a younger person, a child, was trying to take care of a parent. And I didn't intend to write a book, but I also had joined a poetry group when I retired from teaching in 2009. And I ended up with a number of poems. They are selective. They do touch on at least a little bit, both the good and the bad, and the sweet and the bittersweet. But there's lots of things that you as caregivers deal with regularly that you kind of need to just be able to let go because it's hard when someone that you know and love is changing. So I picked a couple poems that kind of reflect that journey. And he began to rely on me for opinions, help a little bit, double checking whether or not he was throwing away junk mail or if he had something important with him. So that's kind of where he started letting me in. This is called readjustments. Not long after mother died, my octogenarian dad realized eligible contemporaries expressed interest with baked goods. He remained gracious, appreciative, friendly, but not overly so. One afternoon, with fresh baked cookies on his kitchen counter, "I've got a problem," he told me. He held up a neatly lettered baggie. "Look what she called me." "No worries, snickerdoodles," I assured him. What's the name of the cookie? And the poem ends there. Of course, the conversation did not. How did I know? What do I know about it? What made that a snickerdoodle? And so you have those responses. You know, mother made those, I made those are snickerdoodles. And you just help them where you can. I was blessed that he was as cognitive and healthy as long as he was. But he still could tune me up. And sometimes you choose not to fight the battle. They're just little events along the way. This is called passing muster. And many of these have dialogue conversations. Part 1. "I put your salsa in the fridge, Dad." "Just put it in the cupboard. That's where it belongs." "But it's open now. It needs to be in the fridge." "It gets too cold. Just put it on the shelf. What's the problem?" "It will mold." "Mold, schmold. It'll be fine. Nobody puts it in a fridge." Boy, I tell you, I'm going to ask the guys at coffee. Ketchup, 2. Or 2. The guys at coffee. Dad's connection to the world he used to traverse as easily as his steady stride covered creek banks fly fishing. As he guided Mom in their favorite rumba. As his bowling ball scattered pins, City Scratch champion twice, 17 years apart. As easily as he served his clients in an occupation that sells only promises. At coffee, the world now comes to him. Local issues, gaffes, gossip, and laughs. Today, not for the first time nor the last, as my comments niggle his normal savvy, what I say must pass muster. There was a really, really nice group of people that he would have coffee with at McDonald's usually. And that was a very important thing to him. And it fits right in with longevity and brain health. He had that social circle that he could maintain. Any comments, questions, or anything?
I just remember all of them. My dad was probably part of that, with the Maracas and
Yes.
Remember Bruno?
Yes,
Hey,
yes,
down hooligans.
yeah. They were quite a group of really remarkable people there. Yes,
Yeah, so really loved your dad. He would also go to the comments and get this very senior iced tea and he would out with the guys having coffee together.
it's, who is your dad, please?
Dan,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
Your dad was one of the ones that inducted me into the turtle field.
Uh-oh. I'm not gonna say anything.
You're not gonna ask the question.
That was a long time ago. Um, when we were cleaning out the office, I found a lovely 8x10 sheet that talked about some of the things that were important to him and being able to serve in the way that he did, taking care of his clients, was reflected in many of those things. And I could tell stories about that too, but I'll skip on to something else here. Sometimes the moment goes by, and if you don't think about it, you miss part of it. So this is called Changing Seasons. And it was just Dad and I working in the garden. And this, I had to go home and think about this and get it down. Take my hand, he says as I approach. His extended left hand caked in rich black earth from where he stoops over the row of cabbage transplants. Oh no, I almost say, can't trick me. I've just cleaned up, you prankster. But he's my father. Obedience still follows easier than not. I take his hand. He grips mine solidly, just enough to steady his rise to vertical, his one step up from garden to the lawn edge, a threshold, physical and emotional. In all his 99 years, his strength prevailed. Today, he asked for mine. He hands me the next cabbage plant. I step into the row. He prepares the earth ahead of me as we plant 5 more slender, 6-leaved cabbage. 6 weeks ahead of his centenarian celebration. Drenched in a plum blossom perfumed April day, steeped in the camaraderie of changing roles. That's probably one of the hardest things to see, is to have our parents become dependent on us. And it's a blessing, and it's a task. And I hope that you can find time for yourself as you're doing these things. The phone call you hate to get. And if you're caring for a parent for a long time, you probably get several of different varieties. This one brought back a memory. So there's both a response here and then my recollection of an earlier time. And the first word of this poem is click. And if you've picked up a rotary phone or a push button phone, You know what that click is? Part one of telephones, part one. Click. He hung up on me, as did his mother. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree, but this time isn't fun. I drive 20 minutes to his house, not knowing. I'm dizzy. I can hardly walk, he'd said. Was it a stroke? Had his aneurysm burst? Was he lying on the floor even now, unconscious? Or worse, what do I need? Where is his medical PLA? I find him in the chair watching TV, his selectively used cane near at hand, apologetic. You didn't need to come. He hasn't eaten, feels better. No, I can't fix breakfast. He's sorry he wasted my time. Dad, I tell him, my time with you is a gift. His eyes well. Later, a pot of soup on the stove. I say goodbye. My assurance, call me anytime. Part two, going home. Memories wash in a slideshow of my Italian grandmother, whom I saw nearly daily growing up. When my first teaching position took me to El Paso, I missed the gift of time shared. I called her. Are you home? She says in broken English. No, I told her, I just called to see how you are. I'm fine. Click. Those generational blessings are something that hopefully you have had a chance to experience. We moved away, my kids didn't get to know their grandparents well. But they were able to establish a relationship with dad, especially as they grew older and once I moved back. But I cherish the time I had with my grandparents, and I don't think that it's the same. They were right next door, and I could go over and talk to them. I look back on those times, and I worked through a lot of things doing that too, even as a preteen, and just having somebody to bounce something off. Even if I didn't get anything but a hug when I left, close the door as I go out. It just was a chance to be with someone who would listen. Any other? Yes.
Where can we get this?
Well, it is on Amazon and it is at the bookstore. And I still have it at home. If you want to get it from me, you can as well.
And Renee, if any of the people who got them last week brought them back, would you sign them for them?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else?
Did writing help you work through?
Oh, man.
your own?
Oh, yeah. The one I read about just the impact, and I thought back about it, of dad asking me to take his hand. Times when I couldn't do anything right. Those two. Yes.
Did you write every day or you just write like special events?
I am not very disciplined about writing every day. And there were times I live out near Bighorn. There were times when I came in and out of, and I was still working part of the time, in and out of town 3 or 4 times. And sometimes it was just because the remote didn't work. So, and we got to where if he stood in the right place and pointed at the right direction, if I could get him to do those things, I could talk him through resetting that, but many times it didn't work. So, I'm more of a get something in my head and then get it down. So. Yes. Oh, Sandy.
Would you share with us? Page 10, 11, and then page 33. Which I think for the skill classes. Just put-
Yes. So Dad was an insurance salesman. A century of life expectancy tables. I could go anytime, he tells me. I'm ready. His own mortality accompanies him now, a companionable doppelganger on the periphery of his life. His life expectancy foretold each time he opened his actuarial tables to price a client's life insurance policy. In his 30s, his life expectancy stretches away 3 decades plus of little concern while he raises daughters, plays at local dance bands with his 4-piece swing band. In his 50s, his life expectancy dawdles a couple decades ahead as he instructs his only son, coaches Little League Baseball. In his 70s, his life expectancy teases from the far horizon as he continues to work, dances at family gatherings with his life's love and their daughters and granddaughters. In his 90s, his life expectancy moot, but a number surpassed. Retired this last decade, crooning songs of his youth, grieving his wife and friends now gone, he approaches the century mark in awe of all he's known and experienced and lived. He lives each numbered day a gift ready. His easy laugh ready. His ironic wit ready. His perceptive insight ready. His open generosity ready. His bent knee ready. So we were fortunate enough to have home care 24 hours a day when he was in most need. And the other one that Sandy requested, there's a little bit of a backstory. It's called privileged information. And he was hospitalized with a severe UTI. And if you care for an older person, that is a common occurrence. And the young lady who was on staff to be his night caregiver, in case he woke up, was in need of help, went to the hospital and sat with him all night. And he didn't sleep. He wouldn't have slept. The noises and the nurses in and out and being checked. And so he had her there to visit with. And he had had 3 pretty rough days when this happened. Privileged information. The occupational therapist enters the hospital room in a bubble of golden energy that engulfs the centenarian in his wheelchair like a warm tide on the Mediterranean Sea. IV drip stands resolute over his right shoulder. And who's this with you, she asks. Disheveled, disoriented, this third morning, he focuses first on the question, then shifts to look at me. After a heartbeat, his, a heart fall, mine. I know who she is. eyes on me. You know who you are, that right? I grin, nod, yes. Turning back to the therapist. I know who she is. She knows who she is. We're good.